Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my video, and today we'll be continuing the GB-X210 build. This will be part 2 of the build video, which should completely finish up the build, and we might, I don't know, we'll see where it gets and how much time I go through here, but this is where we left off with the last part 1. We have the ESCs wired up to the motors and the ESCs wired up to the power distribution board, so everything's all good there. And next, basically, we're going to start adding things like the flight controller. We need to add a couple more wires to the power distribution board, such as power for the cool little LED bar that comes with it, as well as power for the video transmitter and power for the flight controller. So we're going to get to soldering those things on, so let's get to that. Okay, here we are. So for the power for the LED bar, this actually, I tested this just to make sure. This actually only takes 5 volts in. It might have a boost buck regulator on there, I'm not sure, but it's very bright. If you've been keeping up with my Instagram, I've been posting videos and pictures of the build as I'm going along, so I've tested this. So this needs 5 volts, as well as the flight controller takes 5 volts, and then that sends it off to the receiver. And then I'm going to, this takes 7 to 24 volts, the video transmitter here, but to help prevent spikes, it's in the middle actually, to help prevent spikes, just to make sure, I'm going to power it off the 12 volt regulator. So we're going to need to add some wires here, so I have these 2 little ones cut up for the LED bar, and 2 more for the flight controller, and they're going to have to share the same pads, the 5 volt and ground and 12 volt and ground out the back here. You can see I already have them tinned. So let's get to work on putting them out. And I'm going to have the flight controller. This is the front this way. I'm going to mount it like this, because if you mount it forward, the USB will come out the back, and sometimes that gets in the way with stuff, especially with this LED bar here. So I'm going to mount it like that so it comes out the side, so I'll just be able to get into it like that. I'll just rotate the board and the software. Another thing, I changed my XT60 mounting. I actually did end up making a little pigtail for it, because as well as durability, because if that gets hit, that'll snap the whole power distribution board, as well as the battery leads weren't going to be able to make it. Somebody else has been helping me, so I decided to take it off and put a little pigtail on there. Probably a little bit long, but you know, it'll work. So let's get to mounting the wires. Alright, these ones are going to be for the flight controller, so we have our 12 volts here. It's going to get pretty tight in here. Okay, there we are, all done with all the power wires, and I'm sorry I couldn't show that on camera, but if you do build videos, y'all understand it was just one of those things. I could not get it done on camera. It took me like 10 minutes because these pads are just so small, and I had to make sure everything was right. So basically, these 2 wires over here, zoom in a little bit, on the 12 volt power and ground came from this video transmitter wire. We're going to be removing the green wire in just a minute because we don't need audio, and I'm not going to be using audio on this build. And this will give 12 volts to the video transmitter, and then it will send 5 volts back to the camera through this. And over here, these 2 coming out, you can see I just routed them along this this thing. I can't even remember what it's called right now. Voltage step down over here, because once we put the flight controller on like this, these are just going to wrap up to the board here and along these positive minus rails to power that in the receiver. And then I have these other 2 wires coming out this side on the same positive and negative pads on top of them to power the little LED bar. If you can see here, they just are gonna go right onto the LED bar right here. So that's that. So right now, because these are such small and thin wires, I'm gonna hit that up with some hot glue real quick. Alright, and while the hot glue is heating, I'm just gonna take this green wire out of this little wire harness. So I'm gonna unwind it, and basically you just have to, if I can find my tweezers once again, there they are, lift up on the green, the green is next to the black, lift up the little plastic thing. I know you guys certainly can't see this, but there's little pads there, and you have to lift up the plastic, and the green wire should slide right out, or you can just pull it hard, and it should come out too, which I think I'm gonna have to resort to because my tweezers aren't fine point enough. So let's just unwind this for now. Get this green wire out of here. Okay, and pull it. That works enough. Just ripped it right out there. So now we can rewind this cable back up, just for keeping things neat for right now while the hot glue is heating. Right there, it's wound up enough, so hot glue should be ready in a second. I'm hitting the base where the connectors attach, and then a little bit of the wire and board around them to make sure they're really held in place well and don't wiggle and vibrate around so they can't break off. There we go. Now let's let that dry and move on. Okay, so that hot glue is set, and I also just soldered these two wires onto here, and the board goes in like this. This is the front, this is the back, so you're going to put the GB-RC logo on the left side if you're looking at the back, and it just goes in the little post like that. It sticks out the back, and the top plate will slot in, so those wires could be shorter, but it'll get it plenty of room and they'll be fine in there. So that can just hang out for a moment. So next I'm going to take, let's see, unwind this just a little to get this out of the way. So these wires have flight controller, so I'm going to put the flight controller on. Once again with the USB coming out the right, that's how I would like it here. And I put these stickers on, just in case you're wondering. It came with some stickers, so I put some on there and one on the bottom. I just thought the white looked good contrast. So these wires, basically these red and negative, so positive negative, are just going to wrap up, and they can go anywhere on the rails here, the positive and negative rails where the signals all go. If you can see that there, the top row is signal, the middle row is positive, and the bottom row is negative. So the signals are all separate, but the positive are all connected next to each other in a rail, and the negatives are all connected in a rail. So you can put it on any of here. So you're going to be using the first four, 1, 2, 3, 4 for the motors, and then I'll probably put these anywhere from 6 to 8, and then it looks like there's the boot at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and tin these pads, and I'm using a much finer soldering tip for this with lower temperature so you don't damage the board. And just in case you're wondering, you certainly can use pads or pins if you want, but actually in this build I've put it together, just the frame, to see how everything fits so I could do the build video better. And wait, what am I doing? I only need to do the signals here. Whoops. And I don't honestly know if there would be room for pads in this because it is really tight in here. Why is that pad not going? There goes that one. Let's steal some solder. There we go. So now these, I already have these wires pre-tinned, so we should be able to just, I'm going to cut this a little shorter, this wire, because it's a little bit long and I don't want it to touch anything. And then make sure you get that little piece that I just cut off. You don't want it shorting anything, and it looks like it just fell down the power distribution board. That's what you don't want. There, I just got it out. And I noticed something interesting on this board. The writing is actually like pink on here, so that's kind of cool. Don't know why it's like that though. And the silk screening, the battery strap is pink. I don't know, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month actually this month, so perhaps they're doing it for that. So there's the positive. Now let's get the negative. This one should, I can just curl up around the edge like that. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit more solder to these. And of course I knocked it off, yay me. But obviously that's proof that one wasn't on very well. These stupid connectors are getting in the way. Okay, there we go. So positive and negative are on. Make sure obviously once again you check to make sure they're on right. So next we're going to be taking a look. If this is the front of the copter, this is motor 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me zoom out just a little so you can visualize this better. This is very important. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you look that, so here is number 1. So this wire here, I'm actually going to take over. I'm just going to lift up the board because I'm going to run it through here. So I'm going to take it up over here and stick it back down. And this is going to come up over here and connect there. So I'm going to cut this there. I'm actually going to take this back off just so it's real easy to get in here. And yes, you do need to put both the signal and the ground because the ground helps reduce noise as it's coiled up together. So do both of them. Some people get away with only the signal, but you're probably going to have issues with your ESCs, so just run both of them and don't worry about it. So let's strip these here. This knife, I need a new one, so if any of you wants to buy me a new razor blade, go ahead. This is really blunt. Strip these wires. There we go, so now I'm going to tin them here. Clean my iron once again using the small tip for the board here. And you want to tin these wires out away from the stuff. You don't want to just leave them close over stuff because the spatter can get into things, which is not good because then it could short it. So let's run these back under. And a lot of people will like to, more serious builders, well not serious, but cleaner builders, will attach them to the underside of the board, but I find it easier to maintain and access, and you know, I just don't really care that much if I put them on top. So I'm going to run the ground up. I left these a little bit long just so we'd have some wiggle room here. This obviously isn't a beginner build, but it doesn't have to be super advanced if you don't make it. So there's the negative, and now let's run the signal up. Got my shaky hands. Just get it in place, and now let's, whoops. This is a bad position with these connectors here. Now the reason why I hate these connectors. There we go. So just like that. That should be good. I can pull this tighter just a little so it's a little cleaner on the edge. So there we go with the power and the first one. So you're going to do this motor up here to number 2. They're labeled 1 through 8 on here, so this is number 1. This ESC is number 2, number 3, and number 4. So just line them up on the pads, do the signal and the negatives. I'll have to tin the negatives. I realize I just missed them for the grounds there. And do the rest of the 3, and then we'll be back when you're done with that. Okay, there we go with all the signals, grounds, and the power for the flight controller in. Just once again, this is the front with the USB pointing out the sides, so make sure. And now you might want to check these rails with a multimeter just to make sure you have nothing bridged. If it has a continuity setting, set that up so it beeps, and check all the rails to make sure there's nothing touching between them, and also on your power distribution board, but I've already done that. So then I took these 2 screws, these little washers, and tightened down on the front 2, and now we're going to take some more hot glue obviously along these because these are very fragile connections and wires. So you're going to want to hit these up with some hot glue, at least I do, to make sure that nothing breaks off here, because they certainly can break, and this will just really improve the durability here. It's not the neatest, doesn't look the best, but who cares when it's flying along at 80 miles an hour. So there we go. That looks good, and let that dry. And now for the other 2, if you're wondering why I didn't put screws on the back here, the nuts, because they actually want you to use 2 more of these, because these screw on here in the back, and then you take this little carbon piece that is included here, and you set that on top of there, and then you mount the other 2 washers on top of that, which gives you a nice little, if I can show it, a nice little bridge up here, a little platform for you to mount your receiver on. So that's what we're going to be doing next, is wiring up our receiver to talk to the flight controller, and this is the FreeSky X4R SB, so the S-Bus version, and I'm going to figure out how to wire that up. I got to take a minute and think things out, and then we'll get back to that. Okay, here we are back again. I've figured out the next couple steps. So I'm going to be mounting the FreeSky X4R SB, and now this is the naked version. It comes without the case and without the pins on it, which is really helpful for this build because it's so tight in here. So basically, once again, this little plate's going to be going on here. So this is going to be really tight and really nice to just strap onto that, because then the camera fits right up here in the top plate, and then the video transmitter is going to fit right here. So it's going to be a really tight build. So first what we're going to do is having to connect the receiver to the flight controller. So you're going to take one of these connectors that comes with it. These I believe they're 8-pin, and basically we're only going to need the positive, negative, and signal on the front one, so that all go into this wire here. So we're going to take all these other ones out, which is another reason why I hate pins, because there are these connectors. They're just so much extra you don't need. So I'm going to work on getting all these extra wires out here. So there we go. So this should just be all you need to connect. And if once again we look at the board here, it's going to be this port right on the side. So if you're looking at the micro USB connector here, it's going to go in the one on the left side. So for the way I've mounted the board, it's going to be in the back. So let's put this back in here now that we got all the excess wires out. Make sure that's in there. Well, that should be UART3. Throw all those wires out, and now basically this will just fit nice and tight up here. We can bend it back in because this LED board's going to be right here. Plenty of room there, plenty of room. And this should, once we have this, come back up here, maybe through some of these holes into the receiver. And for the S-Bus, it is the, let me get something to point with here. It's these 3 ports here, the front 3 on the left. So this one is signal, this one is positive, and this one is ground. So signal, positive, ground. We're just going to solder to those pads with those 3 wires, just like we did to the flight controller. So once again, a small soldering iron tip. So let's tin up those pads and get to work on that. Okay, there goes that. So now we're going to have to, let's see, how do I want to mount this guy on the frame here? It's going to go probably this way. So I guess the wires can just come up like that, so it can be, they don't have to be super tight on the length. Yeah, if they come up, so I guess just about there. A little longer. Cut that connector off. Now I'm going to take the port back out. I should have thought of this. Let's get this back out. Be careful, especially now with only 3 wires, not to pull on it. You don't want to rip these wires out. Although if you do, there is, wherever it went, there's a second, there it is, a second cable exactly like this for the other side if you're doing PWM or something that you could do. So now let's strip these wires. So if you do mess up, you could get like a second chance. Now I'm going to tin these up over here. My iron once again. Just get them up in the air. Away from the build so any splatter doesn't go into the board. Okay, there we go. And now it should be just as simple as, once again, soldering the white wire onto signal. Let's just put it like this. White to signal. It's pretty hard to get in here, so this might take me a couple tries. Real small pads and stuff. Okay, white to signal, and then it should be positive. So 5 volts from the flight controller should go right here. Just like that, and then ground should go on the next one over. You can just bend it so it holds right. There we go. Now I'm going to hit that up with some hot glue before I heat shrink this down, because these are very, very thin wires. I'm actually going to fix that ground just a little bit off camera. Okay, so there we go. The hot glue on the wires for the receiver here is all in place, and now they don't flex at the joint there. So now, before I fully mount this, I'm going to use some heat shrink. That was actually included, one of the pieces with the DYS ESC, so that's really nice. It fits perfectly for the receiver here. And also it's nice and thin, so it'll keep the size down. So I'm actually going to slide this over, and it fits all the way over. But before I do that, I'm going to plug this back in, just because before we mount this and go any farther, once again, if you haven't checked your board with a multimeter for connections that'll smoke your board, do that, because we're going to be plugging in a battery here. Make sure your FPV antenna is on if your transmitter is plugged in, so nothing shorting, and get that ready, because I'm actually going to bind the receiver. I'm going to get my Tyrannus here. I'm going to bind it before we put it in there. And also make sure you should have made sure your flight controller is working before, but I'm too lazy. I've never had one not work, but with my luck, this is probably the one that doesn't work. So let's put this into bind mode, and let's turn on the receiver. This is always kind of hard. Receiver while we plug in the battery here. And I don't see any LEDs on the receiver. Okay, so here we are a few days later, and we had a little bit of a setback. If you saw the receiver I just tried to bind, I was not getting any lights from it. This is the one here. I tried various power sources, just a couple different things, the X4R, and apparently it's a faulty, a defective one, dead on arrival, because nothing was working, and I have wired it correctly. I've done multiple of these, so in the meantime I ordered a couple different ones here, and got some. I'm emailing Banggood about the defective one to try and get a replacement one, because you can never have enough spares. But I have a new one in here, and I have it wired up the exact same way. I'll just hopefully zoom in here. I have it wired the exact same way with this connector here with the white, red, black. So we're going to do the binding procedure.
Welcome to
Once again, let's turn on my Tyrannus, and then I'm going to go and hit the bind. There's plenty of videos on other people's videos on how to bind, but I'm just going to show you to make sure. So this is the tricky part, trying to hold this little bind button as you plug the battery in, and hopefully you can see that there. I do have lights now, and there is a blinking red as well as a solid green. Solid greens means we have a good bind, so we can unplug that and exit bind mode. And now if we re-plug in like normal, solid green, no red, we have a good bind, and our controller is talking to the receiver here, so make sure our throttle's down, and I think if we just press that, fail-safe, it blinks a couple times, and that'll set our fail-safe position there, so it should kill the throttle, and we'll also set that up in the Betaflight configurator, but it is good to have it on both ends. So now that you know your receiver is working, we can move on and continue the install. Another thing I want to point out is for the flight controller, if you haven't checked, just like I had bad luck with this receiver that I had from Banggood. It was obviously not their fault. You know, they're just selling the products. They don't make them, and it's a genuine FrSky product. It's the first bad one I've ever got, actually, and I bought a bunch of them from Banggood. The flight controller I got, this is the GearBest kit, the SPF3, obviously the clone. The one that came in this specific kit, mine came defective. I'd get the lights and stuff, but when I would try to connect to the computer, no matter various troubleshooting things I've done, and I've configured a lot of boards, it was just, I guess, a defective board or something, because it did not work. So I took another board I had at a different kit, and that one I put it right in, resoldered all the wires, and it works perfectly, and everything's working. So it does definitely pay to make sure to check things like the flight controller and receiver before you fully install them, because it's going to be a hassle to take them back out if they are not working. So let's keep building. Alright, let's take one of them pieces of clear heat shrink that came with the DYS XS 30 amp ESCs, and let's use that to protect our receiver here. Should just fit nice over. Sure is a tight fit on the heat shrink. You might want to hit these pads up with some hot glue. but I am getting really lazy and I already have this on and I don't want to heat up the gun. If I can just push this in more. Alright, there we go. I'm happy enough with that. And I might, depending on how tight this shrinks, I might cut holes for the bind button. Although we've already bound it, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. So let's get our heat gun here and shrink it down. Alright, there we go with that. And that should not only protect it from shorts, but also make it pretty water resistant. And I'm just going to try and pinch it off here. This is fairly light heat shrink. And the button's plenty free, it's not stuck in, so we're good there. If you can hear that clicking. Alright, so now we have the receiver all ready for install here. Just going to plug it in on the port that goes on the left side of the arrow, which in the board orientation we have is coming out the back of the board. Then I'm going to take this little carbon plate that comes on it, slide that over, and then actually, because these wires are going to come up, so it's going to be like this, I might want to put this on beforehand. I think I'm going to use double-sided tape here, so let me get some of that. Okay, here we are. So the receiver is now on with the double-sided sticky tape, as well as 2 alternating zip ties for equal pressure on the receiver there. You can see the big end at one side, and I have this down like this, so these are going to be on the underside, so they won't take up room, because once this flips over, that'll slot onto there. And make sure when you're doing this that you keep the receiver, you need to keep it forward here. You can't have it too far back, because this LED plate here, when this, if I can get it in there, when this clips in, you're not going to have much room back here. So if you have it too far back, you'll be pinching your wires or hitting it. So just make sure you have it far enough forward. So now once that's there, you can just take 2 little washers that are included and just put them over the posts and tighten this little platform with the receiver mounted on it down. Okay, so the receiver is now on with that platform. You can see it's really nice and starting to tightening up the build here. So next, basically, we're getting pretty close to the end here. Basically, we're going to keep in mind these wires that we soldered on before for the camera and video transmitter. We're going to have to take this plate. This is the top plate here. This goes on these 4 screws. You can see there's really not much room in here. So basically, the camera is going to fit up front in between these 2 plates up there. So that's going to fit right up here, and then we're going to have to take our video transmitter and strap it to the top plate right up here. So you can see it's going to be a very tight build, so let's get doing that. I'll try and show as much as I can on camera, but once I said, I'm going to have to probably do multiple, like 5 revisions of how I do stuff before I get it the right way to fit around, so I'll show you that when I'm done. Okay, so let's work on building the top camera part. So let's set the quad aside here. So we're going to get the top plate and these 2 little pieces here, and these things, these slots go into here like this, and then they slide over along the edge. And this is one of the hardest parts I've found, because I've done a couple mock-up builds. And then you got to get the camera with the little screw through the hole here, and you got to hold it in. Just putting 1 screw in the side to hold it here. The other one should fit. Where's the thing? Should fit like that, and then good luck getting it to fit in here, both of these, but it can be done. It just takes forever. Alright, so I got the camera in here with these 2 plates finally. These little slots leave open for the GoPro mount later on top, and I just put these screws in the side as well as the second one through these pieces, and I hold it in at the notched angles. There's actually little notches there, and I believe that's 45 degrees, maybe, I don't know. It can go higher. I believe it goes to like 70, and it goes down to like 5, those little notches there. So next, I'm going to take these pieces here and get this little guy, added another GEP-RC sticker to it, which is going to hold with zip ties the antenna through the thing here at the back. It's just a little extension plate if you want to run your antenna instead of putting it through the hole, which I'm going to do. So I'm just going to real quick put these screws through these, because it's going to make it easier. It's just to have this plate on, I'm assuming, hopefully. Like I said, I've never built this frame before or anything like it. So then get the other one through. Just putting the standoffs in just to hold it right now. So, and then the video transmitter should, because of the way I'm going to want it with the button, it's not going to work. If I put the screen up, the button will get hit. It's supposed to show through these things, the little screen down here, but I'm going to put it upside down because I don't fly with anybody anyways, so I don't need to change the channel. And it should fit in here. Sorry for being out of shot. It should fit in here just like this with, once again, a little more foam tape on these little rails here, and then a zip tie through these two holes right here and here. Should fit like that, and the antenna should come out the back. Hopefully angle it just a little bit because this is offset, this plate, if you can see that, but this video transmitter has a central antenna instead of an offset one, so it's working against us. But if we put it a little bit to the side, we'll be able to wrap around the connector and the antenna, and it'll be a really nice, strong, clean, out the back up antenna like that. So let's get some more foam tape and put that on these parts here. There's a second one, and I noticed this stuff sticks really well to the carbon here. Not so much to the heat shrink. I mean, it does stick well, but the carbon, it really holds. So you don't really need a zip tie, but I like the foam and zip tie method. It's really good if you ask me. So let's position this so we can, might be beneficial to get your video transmitter cable from your quad in the port first. It's going to be pretty tight once we put this in. Yeah, I think I'm going to, I don't know, that'll tighten the whole thing up. Now I'll just have to get it later. Okay. Well, I guess that's where it's going to be because it's stuck, and now it is really stuck on there. So push that down some more, and now let's get our zip tie. Can it reach? I don't know if the small one can reach. Okay, I got a couple clicks in. We can tighten it some more. Don't go super crazy. Obviously you want it tight, but the foam will hold it down. Don't damage anything on the board. Just trying to get there. Last click. Cut the excess off. I probably should have put it underneath to clean it up a little without this bob here, but yeah. And then, yeah, that's really well on there. It moves a little bit, but that's actually good for what we want. And then the antenna will just stick up like that. So camera part, there's some more we have to build with the GoPro mount here. So let's do that. So you just get these other knurled pieces here, these little bars that go in between here to form the GoPro plate. So these little bracket arms also are part of the camera assembly, and they go, if I can remember, yeah, they go like this, and they fit down through these little slots here, and then, or no, they go the other way. This one goes that way, and of course I dropped it and put it on backwards again. So they go down through here, and this will let you adjust your angle from 30 degrees right there to 45 degrees right there. And then there's a little cross plate that goes across in that notch. So let me build this. Alright, there we have the GoPro camera mount all assembled here. You can see we're allowed more camera tilt from this bar here that doesn't hit. And then if we take our camera, something like a GoPro, this is a SJ5000X. You can see that just fits on there. That's actually, how much angle is that? That's more than 45, although this will be in the thing, frame at a different angle, so I guess that'll be about 45. It just fits on here. And there's also this little cross beam that just sits in those slots there to give you a little more support on the bottom. It doesn't screw in or anything. I don't like how it just sits there, but I guess if you're holding the camera down against it, there won't be a problem. And you can run a battery strap underneath all of this around the two posts here to hold that on, and it'll hold everything real tight and nice in there. Maybe put a little foam on this to protect your screen if you have one on the back here. So now we're going to have to basically be looking at connecting this, getting this onto the quad in a fashionable manner, and getting everything plugged in, and then routing our antennas. So let me take a look around and I'll be back with that. Okay, so all I've done is I have plugged in the wires coming off from the camera and the video transmitter, that little cable that came with that we powered from the power distribution board. And these could be a little, I could cut these shorter, maybe like an inch, but I'm just gonna kind of bundle them up just a little bit because I'm not, it'll make it a little cleaner if we do it, but I don't care that much. It'll still be pretty clean inside there. It'll be all contained. And then I also forgot, I did put 2 zip ties through the camera plate here. I just forgot to show that. So now this gets a little tricky to fit this on. I'm going to have my receiver antennas just hopefully out of the way for now. You can see there is extra room in here, but it's not terrible. Make sure you have your LED bar slotted in place. If I can get it here so it doesn't push out on me. And this is where it gets tricky here. May have put my video transmitter too far up because the camera, or there's little slots up front. Sorry, I know you can't see this, but this is really tight up here. There's little slots I showed you in the beginning where those camera pieces have to go in. There, I got that in. So now let's try and keep that in while getting the LED bar into the back here. Try and lift here. Get it? Okay, almost there. Oh, there goes one side. Can I get the other one in? Yep, that video transmitter is really close and kind of pushing on there, but I managed to force it just a little bit. So now, while these are here, hopefully that all stays together like that. I'll take more of these little gold screws and slowly tighten it down just to hold things together while making sure everything is out of the way and not being pinched while you're doing this, because that would be a big bummer. And for this one, it's going to be the back. Since we already had these in from the top, it's going to be a big bummer if you pinch a wire and obviously it'll cut or short and you have to take it all apart. So let's find the standoff there. Once again, I said I'm just doing real slow tightening on these. Just get the battery strap out of the way to make sure nothing is getting pinched. Okay, it's all held together, so take a quick look at that. That looks awesome, and it is very tight in there indeed, and you can see the wires from the camera up here. They're not terrible, and they're not terribly messy, if you can see in there, hopefully. So let's make sure everything's out of the way, everything's lined up well, nothing's going to be forced. Let's see. Alright, so everything looks good to me, so I will start tightening all these little gold screws down. Alright, and there we go. Let's pull out for that. So you can see everything basically, we are pretty much almost done here. The only other things I can think of, there's a couple little foam things I'm going to show you that are included with the battery strap to prevent slipping for mounting your battery, as well as we have to take care of these receiver antennas. So it looks like I'm going to probably, well, I don't know, there's a little gap, hopefully you can see it in here, right here under my finger here, where this hole comes through. If you can see these 2 holes here where we're going to mount our antennas, these will come up through that hole, and then they should stick up a couple inches up here, which we're going to need some more zip ties for. So let me work on that. It's going to be hard to show, so I'll pretty much just show you the finished product when I'm done here. Okay, here we are back with the receiver antennas. all in place. Hopefully you can see this here. It's kind of hard to show, but I have them pretty close to a 90-degree angle. It doesn't really matter that much here. You can see there. Basically, as I assumed, I went through several different renditions of how I did it. So I basically took a thick zip tie and ran it not through this hole because the video transmitter is blocking it, but just around the main plate here with the knob coming up here, and then ran it up here. And I put a layer of clear heat shrink along there, and then I also making sure to get the antenna straight, and I cut it off at just before the top. And this does two things, and then I added an extra black layer here. The black layer will help conceal it to keep it a little more low profile in flight. I normally like to get them shorter than this. I feel like that's a little tall. It's just kind of obnoxious. Maybe half the length would be great, and it'd still be plenty enough, but you'd have to kind of bunch the wires up in here, and I just didn't do it. But the black will conceal it, and the clear adds more strength. They both add strength together. I feel like this is a pretty good stiffness here. You don't want to be super stiff, but you want it to be enough to bend in a crash so it won't break. And the clear, you can also take a look at the tips. So if you do chop one up, you'll be able to see it. You won't have to strip down the heat shrink there. So next, basically, what we're going to have to do is the battery strap. This is kind of optional, I guess. Basically, we should just be able to set the antennas down like that. It came with, I think, which ones? There's a couple different things here. Okay, yeah, this one in this bag here is meant to go on the frame. Take a look at it here. It's a rubberized mat, and it's got sticky stuff, and it just fits right over the holes here. So it's actually going to cover up the sticker I put on. But there we go. That's on there. Holy crap, that's on there. Well, I'm just pushing in. Sorry you can't see this. I'll try and adjust the camera so you can see better here. Okay, so there we go. Got the bottom one on, and then also this other one on the bottom plate here that protects your battery. So this will grip it really nice in between here. And they also give you these four little things to put, I believe, along the arms, but unless, I mean, you're taking off from the battery, obviously, so these won't be in use. So I'm going to save these for a different build. I guess maybe if you're when you don't have it on for like a shelf queen, maybe, I don't know. But actually, they also give you these two, which are going to go on the end of this thing even more to give even more protection. So I'm going to try these. I might take them off, but these should just stick right on here. I didn't think I was recording there. Okay, so these should just stick on. They're not, I mean, they're foam. They're not the squishiest foam. They're pretty hard and dense, but you know, we'll give them a try. It's going to be sitting pretty high off the ground, although now it should help you get out of grass. So these just stick on like that there. I'm going to take one of my batteries, and then you can size this up however. I'm just using it through the holes. Stick my battery on there. Have this plate come up. Put this through with the battery lead like that. This is kind of complicated. This is why I like top-mounted batteries, but better handling and weight. I'll take an X and then tighten it down. And there we go. That holds our battery cable nice to the side here for our battery to plug in out the side here. And I'll do something with the balance lead to hold it in there. And it also, so that'll keep that out of the prop since it's below. If I move this, you can get a quick look at how the battery mounts there with those little couple sandwiched layers there. So that battery is really in there. This isn't moving. This is a little loose. I should get the straps tighter, but then it just sits like that to take off. Let's see what kind of... So yeah, it definitely is still going to probably tip over when you land. Actually, forward and backwards, it should still land forwards, but you never know. So that's pretty much it there. If you look around, we are pretty much done with the build. Motors, frame, ESCs, camera, video transmitter, battery, power distribution board, flight controller, receiver, everything is good. So I'm going to put some props on real quick just to make it look cool, and we'll go from there. Drops the camera there. Alright, so the front prop here, clockwise, this one's counterclockwise, and these are chipped HQ props, but they will do the job for looks right now. And there we go. Let me adjust the props, and I don't know about you guys, let me adjust the camera here, but this thing, I think this looks fantastic. It does definitely look like a true racer built quad here, true, you know, an X. It looks like the ones you see on Instagram and Facebook, minus the pink battery strap there, but everything good quality components together. Hopefully you liked the build video, and hopefully you found it helpful. If you are building this kit, please feel free to leave any comments you have down below, any suggestions, and any questions you have about the build if you're doing it. I'll leave a link down below to GearBest's site. Thank you for sending it to review, build it, and do reviews on it. If you wish to take a look at the listing for all the parts, since this was a kit. And I'll also leave a link to my Patreon account if you wish to support the channel by donating every month. You know, if you don't know how Patreon works, read up on that. But to help support videos like this, please subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you in the next video. And I would also like to point out that there will be a link to the Part 1 build video down in the description as well if you want to check that out. And there will be a Part 3 coming soon, which will be showing you all the settings on how I configure the ESCs and the flight controller to be fully flight ready with the best settings possible optimized for this build. So Part 3 will be that, as well as the maiden flight, and then this will probably be one of my main copters, so I'll be tuning it, maybe some specific tuning videos, and other videos down the road. So, yep, stay tuned for that. See you in the next video. Bye.